On the 23rd of March 2026, the world's most sophisticated missile doctrine collapsed without a single nuclear explosion. Today, we analyze the surgical lobotomy of Iran's military nervous system and the birth of the geoengineering wars. The balance of global power often rests on the smallest of components. On the morning, Israeli warplanes infiltrated the heart of Tehran, erasing the regime's military nervous system from the map in a coordinated strike that defied conventional defense logic. This was not a mere retaliation for previous escalations. It was a surgical lobotomy operation designed to paralyze a nation's ability to wage modern war. The strike, planned under the joint direction of Israeli and U.S. Air Forces, navies, and military intelligence, utilized F-35 Ayadir and F-15 Iram jets to penetrate deep into Tehran's airspace, while target coordinates were updated in real time. While dozens of strategic targets were hit across Iran simultaneously that night, the most critical objective was a multi-story surface building in northeast Tehran, the headquarters of Iran Electronics Industries, or IEI. As the most critical subsidiary of MODAFL, the Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces Logistics, IEI, is the organization that controls Iran's entire military electronic supply chain. Crucially, IEI did not produce the heavy steel bodies or the volatile fuel for Iran's missile fleet. Instead, it produced the electronic nervous systems, the ring, laser gyroscopes, and inertial navigation systems that ensure ballistic missiles stay on course. It was the birthplace of optical guidance kits for advanced missiles like the Fateh 110, Khorramshahr, and Shahed, as well as the autonomous flight control boards and signal jamming modules for the Shahed 136 kamikaze drones. Israel's tactical choice was clinical. Since the target was above ground, they bypassed bunker-busting munitions in favor of precision-guided weapons designed to create internal fires and thermal destruction. The goal was the total annihilation of microchips, calibration chambers, servers, and decades of R&D databases. At the nanometer level of production, even the mere entry of dense smoke renders a production line permanently scrapped. By the time the roof collapsed into a ball of fire, the brain of the Iranian military apparatus had been vaporized. This strike followed a similar operation against Siren Electronics Industries in Isfahan 4 days prior, signaling a systematic dismantling of the regime's electronic nerve center. The physical resilience of a military doctrine is often measured by the depth of its concrete and the thickness of its granite. For 4 decades, Iran's hide and strike strategy was built on the premise that its most lethal assets could survive any onslaught by retreating into the earth. In massive complexes stretching from Loristan to the Strait of Hormuz, tunnels carved 500 meters below mountain peaks were touted as nuclear bomb resistant, a claim supported by the fact that 500 meters of granite is more than 12 times the penetration capacity of the United States' most powerful bomb, the GBU-57. A CNN investigation utilizing satellite imagery identified at least 107 tunnels across 27 distinct sites, creating a subterranean archipelago of fire. However, the coalition's air campaign revealed a devastating truth. You do not need to collapse a mountain to neutralize the weapon inside it. With the IEI headquarters engulfed in flames, those underground cities immediately lost their operational value. A modern ballistic missile is not a static piece of artillery. It is a high-precision device with a strict shelf life that requires constant electronic updates and meticulous calibration. Without the guidance kits from Tehran, there are no longer brains to install in the missiles waiting in the dark. There are no spare parts to replace the brains of malfunctioning drones, and no command center to perform critical software updates. While the missile beneath the mountain remains physically safe from impact, if the brain that guides it has been destroyed, that mountain is no longer a launch base. It has become a massive underground graveyard where missiles are trapped and destined to eventually become unusable. Electronic components inevitably degrade due to moisture, temperature fluctuations, and simple aging. Without the specialized maintenance formerly provided by IEI, these guidance systems will fail on their own, turning the pride of the regime into a silent tomb of metal. While technical decay set in from within, the coalition moved to seal the exits from without. B-1B Lancer and B-52 bombers utilized BLU-109 salvos to collapse ventilation shafts and tunnel entrances, trapping mobile launchers within their own sanctuaries. The GBU-72 Advanced 5K Penetrator, a a new 5,000-pound bunker buster, made its combat debut against the most hardened storage facilities. Those launchers that managed to emerge into the daylight were met by 24/7 surveillance aircraft and struck before they could fire. Near Shiraz, satellite imagery captured the moment mobile launchers were incinerated as they attempted to enter a canyon. The result was a staggering 86% drop in Iranian missile launches over just 4 days. The two pillars of Iranian doctrine, protection beneath mountains and smart guidance systems, have both been shattered. What remains is a desperate return to the unguided war of cities, tactics of the 1980s, launching missiles toward a general direction and merely hoping for the best. The ripple effects of this operation do not remain confined within the borders of Tehran. They extend across the Middle East, from the shores of Lebanon to the volatile waters of the Red Sea. What we are witnessing is the systematic blinding of the so-called axis of resistance. The Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and various militias in Iraq and Syria. For years, these groups have served as the asymmetric fingers of Iran's military arm, but none of them possess the domestic capacity to produce advanced military technology on their own. They were entirely dependent on the IEI hub for their Shahed drones, their anti-ship missiles, and their electronic guidance kits. When that hub was engulfed in flames, the technological supply lines that sustained these proxies were severed at the source. The navigation maps, the target locking sensors, and the flight control software that once made these groups a global threat all originated from that single multi-story building in Tehran. Consequently, the Houthi attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea and Hezbollah's asymmetric threats against northern Israel have lost their smart edge. Their trajectories have devolved into easily calculable paths that can be far more effectively intercepted by multi-layered air defense shields. The Houthis may still possess the physical frames to launch drones, but without the precision targeting and jamming modules provided by IEI, those drones are little more than flying scrap metal. In Iraq, the situation is equally dire for Iran-backed militias. The specialized flight control boards used for drone attacks on U.S. bases were sourced directly from the IEI inventories. As these existing stockpiles run out, these militias will be left operationally blind. Iran's arms have not been physically severed, but the fingers at the ends of those arms can no longer feel what they are holding or where they are striking. This is the essence of modern geopolitical leverage, striking the brain to paralyze the body. Yet, the most complex front of this global crisis is not just on the battlefield, but on our screens and in our minds. In the cases we examine, media outlets often frame những gì chúng ta thường thấy là cách các phương tiện truyền thông đóng khung các sự kiện theo chương trình nghị sự riêng, che giấu những lỗ hổng hoặc sự hỗn loạn ở hậu trường. Avoiding the trap of manipulative algorithms and breaking out of information echo chambers has become an absolute analytical necessity for anyone seeking to understand the bigger picture. This is why independent tools like Ground News, founded by a former NASA engineer, have become critical for aggregating thousands of sources to identify blind spots in reporting. By comparing headlines side by side, we can recognize the true nature of censorship and misinformation as it unfolds in real time. For years, the Caspian Sea served as a silent sanctuary, a geopolitical backdoor through which everything from Shahed drones to millions of rounds of ammunition has been freely transported to the front lines in Ukraine. This vital smuggling route allowed the Russian war machine to bypass Western scrutiny, sustaining its artillery superiority in regions like Pokrovsk and Chasiv Yar. However, on the night of the 18th of March 2026, Putin's massive smuggling route and the Caspian bridges were shut down in a single night of fire and steel. The target was Bandar Anzali, one of the Iranian Navy's largest bases and a primary logistics hub for shipments destined for Russia. The technical anatomy of this mission pushed the limits of military engineering and intelligence to the absolute edge. To reach the Caspian coast, Israeli war fleets had to penetrate at least 1,600 kilometers of enemy airspace, navigating a region teeming with hostile radars and multi-layered air defense systems like the Bavar 373 and the Russian-made S-300. This was not a routine strike. It was an almost impossible mission that required a digital tunnel created by one of the largest-scale electronic warfare offensives in history to blind Iran's early warning systems. The intelligence dimension was equally shocking. Amidst hundreds of ships and thousands of containers, the precise identification of munitions bound for Russia, drone parts, and targeted naval assets cannot be explained by simple satellite imagery. Analysts assess that the covert presence of Ukrainian military intelligence, the HUR, provided the ground-level data necessary for such millimeter-level accuracy. In a masterstroke of tactical irony, Israel's missiles served only as the spark. The simultaneous destruction of port cranes and ammunition depots was fueled by secondary explosions of 152mm artillery shells and drone fuel, the very ammunition Iran produced for Russia. The burning of Bandar Anzali is more than a logistical delay. It is a dagger plunged into the heart of the Russia-Iran alliance. By striking the Caspian Sea, where Iran feels most secure walking hand-in-hand with its ally, Israel has delivered a devastating psychological message. You have no backyard. Russia cannot protect you. As the wrecks of cargo ships lie underwater, a Russian artillery battery waiting in the trenches of Ukraine will, in the coming weeks, find itself unable to fire a single shell because of missiles launched thousands of kilometers to the south. Control of the board has definitively shifted, leaving the Kremlin to watch in paralyzed fury as its most vital supply line is severed. The burning question echoing through the corridors of global power is whether the Tehran regime can repair this massive electronic destruction while under the world's toughest sanctions. Realistic military analyses suggest that, in the short term, they cannot. For years, despite state television propaganda touting domestic production, Iran's military electronics have secretly relied on Western-made chips and semiconductors sourced through front companies in China and Russia. U.S. sanctions in place since 2008 had already squeezed this vital supply chain, but the physical destruction of the IEI has made the situation exponentially worse. Iran now lacks the specialized facilities necessary to integrate even the chips that might arrive via smuggling routes. Building a clean room is not merely a matter of financing. It is an operation of extreme precision where dust, humidity, and temperature must be controlled with nanometer accuracy. Setting up these environments requires specialized equipment and, most importantly, high-level expertise, much of which was lost along with the IEI building. Rebuilding such a facility costs billions of dollars and spans years, all of which Iran must undertake in the midst of an active war and a collapsing budget. The geopolitical landscape offers little hope. Russia's own semiconductor supply chain has collapsed due to the war in Ukraine, leaving Moscow unable to provide new circuits. Meanwhile, China has adopted a pragmatic approach, prioritizing its own energy security and avoiding military technology transfers that could make it a direct target of Western sanctions. Left to face this technological setback alone, the regime's hope of rebuilding its strategic deterrence diminishes day by day. The final dimension of this strategic shift is the permanent erasure of Iran's greatest leverage, the Strait of Hormuz. For decades, this waterway has handled approximately 20 million barrels of oil daily, accounting for 1/5 of global energy trade. The 2026 crisis, leaving 3,200 ships stranded, transformed a bypass canal into a strategic necessity. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are now advancing plans for a mega canal valued between $200 and $300 billion. This channel, at least 25 meters deep, would render Iran's 5,000 sea mines, fast attack boats, and coastal missiles irrelevant. When tankers heading directly out to open sea no longer pass through that narrow corridor, a threatening power's cards are rendered destroyed without a single shot fired. We have entered the era of geoengineering wars. States now aim to neutralize the enemy by altering the geography itself rather than fighting over the terrain. As Saudi Arabia's 1,200-kilometer east-west patrol line reaches full capacity and new ports like Khor Fakkan come online outside the strait, the era of geopolitical blackmail is buried. The supply lines are severed, the underground cities are entombed, and the strait is bypassed. Iran's military apparatus was shattered by a strike on its brain and a reorganization of the Earth's surface. The shackles have been broken, the game has started anew, and the control of the board has definitively shifted hands.